welcome to BEC Talks.
Thank you.
It's a privilege to be your host today, Łukasz. You are an IT guy. This is probably the best part of your LinkedIn that I found. An IT guy. That's just a description of all of your roles at some previous job.
Oh yeah.
That make me laugh a bit because you are indeed an IT guy. Jack of all trades and the master of a lot. Because besides being an IT guy and independent consultant, you are a lecturer, a researcher, so a scientist, actually.
Yeah, I used to be.
You used to be a scientist and a podcaster.
That is true.
So I'm glad that you accepted my invitation today because we are going to touch the subject that is really close to my heart. And I also have to admit that I need your expertise a little bit because in my own area, I have a few questions that I hope that you will be able to answer and to help me with my own struggles. Because today we are going to talk about better decisions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So how we, especially in the corporate world, can make better decisions. What actually, constitutes a better decision, and how that translates to more of business value and better business value, if we obviously know what business value is. So all of those questions and maybe some more, I hope that we will answer today.
How many days do we have?
Oh, how many days?
Yeah.
Well, my ambition was 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So that's an ambition goal. That's an ambitious goal. So that was a short introduction, but I would like to dig more into what you were doing as a scientist and researcher, because that's a quite an unusual way of entering the big world of IT.
Yes, yeah. As always, it's a matter of luck, obviously, right? So my story started relatively in a kind of a usual way. I did my master's degree at the University of Technology in Warsaw. And I started working in a company. They still exist, Alcatel. It was the time when Polish telephone exchanges were exchanged from analog to digital ones. So there was a lot of work. I say bringing new ones, but it wasn't really terribly exciting job. But it was fun, as a first job out of the university, still working, within the trade. That was cool. And I think after a year of working at Alcatel, I learned from a colleague of mine, friend of mine, from the university, that I could go to Eindhoven in the Netherlands, do a 2-year kind of postgraduate study, and I will be paid for that.
Sounds awesome.
I checked how much, is it enough to go skiing in the Alps during the winter? They said, yes, it's enough. So I'm going. So I did this, and part of that postgraduate course was actually making a contribution to a real project submarine industry. And I ended up doing mine in Philips Research.
Okay.
And Philips Research at that time was the beginning of the end of big industrial laboratories. So when I joined them, we were probably 3,000-4,000 people just doing research. And by research in this context means, is it possible to do it at all? Does physics allow you to do a transmission 10 times faster, yes or no?
Oh, okay, so we're in, let's say, material field of work, so like physics and stuff. Okay.
Exactly. So like research as in, this is where the science part comes. So it was a little bit scientific, a little bit not, a lot of actually engineering, but it was on the edge of what was possible, what wasn't. And it was quite important when I look back, because once I moved back to Poland, actually I remigrated to Poland, I ended up, as we call it, like the IT world, basically building big software systems. And I just didn't understand why people have so much anxiety about this, because we know it is possible to build it. We know it can be done. It's just a matter, of time and money. So,
the change of paradigm for you.
Yeah, exactly. So my basically tolerance for I don't know, ambiguity, this kind of stuff, what makes people nervous, was basically different because I knew it can be done. So, the biggest question is it's already answered. It can be done. So it's just a matter of money. So yeah, let's just do it in the best possible way. But after a while, I got kind of curious about the world outside corporations. And that was another big twist. And my wife's career was actually ramping off at that time. So we decided, let's try.
She's also a scientist, by the way.
Oh, researcher. Talking about Aga's career and what she is, it's going to take more than 45 minutes.
Yeah, we are saying hello to Aga from here.
Hello, Aga. So it was possible for us as a family to try basically. So Aga was at the time basically bringing financial stability. So the idea was, let's try stuff outside of corporations. And it wasn't really the hype. It was before the hype of agility was coming over. And again, for me, it was a strange realization once I found it, because the principles that underlie agility and Scrum and all those frameworks, this is the only way I knew how to work.
So you have felt like home.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you really need to, training and certificates for that? I mean, it's kind of natural, right? I mean, you have to give, people as much kind of autonomy as possible, because you hire smarter people than you are. You should, at least. I think you should. And you just, make it the best possible environment to work. So again, I had this advantage of worked in a different company, in a different kind of company, in a different culture, because Dutch culture is also very different, as Danish is.
That's
Polish.
right. That's right.
So I started this, and it was going pretty smoothly until I went to a conference, Agile by Example, very good conference, by the way, still going on. And I met an elderly gentleman there who came on stage. He was one of the keynotes. His talk was probably like 40 or 50 minutes. It's still available on YouTube. And the first 15 minutes, I felt offended twice. With the stuff that he was telling. I was offended as a person who was just, doing this agility stuff. And then he added that the worst kind of offenders in his eyes are system architects. And I was proud, and I thought I was a good system architect in the past.
So he was adding insult to injury.
Yeah, so I was kind of sitting like this. The setup was in the cinema, so you can't really quit that easily. So I was just sitting, and I said, okay, you better have something to say now. And by the time he was finished, I thought, okay, there is something in what this person is saying. And this is probably what you want to talk about today. So
that's right.
Gentleman's name is Tom Gilp.
Obviously the grandfather of agility.
That's true. That's true. And at that time, he was talking about, shall we call it a framework or methodology? I don't know. Approach, something he called EVO, which is rooted in very difficult engineering problems like Intel chips, building a new generation of Intel chip, building Boeing airplanes. So this kind of stuff. And he had a big book about this that was very densely written. I decided I have to dig into this. And basically, I think I distilled an essence of his approach and made it, try to make it more approachable for other problems, mostly business problems. So it's basically the essence. I have tweaked it a little bit enough, so I claim it's my own kind of method by now. But there's no denying that it's rooted in Tom's work. He knows about it. He's cheering up for me. He allows me to rebrand, and he even said, you don't even have to mention that it's my work as long as it spreads across the world. But I still feel obliged to give credit where it's due.
Very, I would say, honorable approach. Yeah, you're completely right. I have invited you to talk a little bit about Tom Gilp and a lot about the method that was initially EVO, and right now is more branded into value-based decisions.
That's
so VBD, and this is the term that we'll probably be using a lot today. But before we'll jump to shorter and then the longer introduction to VBD, I would probably would like to define a thing or two. I know you have already seen the newest Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie.
No, I really want to see
I also haven't seen it yet, but I actually found a very, very nice quote from Napoleon, who said that nothing is more difficult and therefore more precious than to be able to decide. So like 200 years old wisdom. And
from a guy who has a success or two.
Yeah, success or two. That's nicely put. I don't know what's your experience with decisions in big corporations, but probably during my own career, I have experienced, and a lot of our IT colleagues who will be listening or watching this material would probably nod more than once or twice, that very often it is obviously deeply rooted in the culture of a certain nation or even a work culture of a certain company. But very often we are unsatisfied with the decision process. That it's very long, it's complicated, it's taking into account a lot of factors. And at the end, the responsibility is also, spread. So you don't really know who is really in charge of a certain decision. So all of those things are actually, when we put them together, actually are screaming, deciding is hard.
It is. But if you really look close enough, isn't it what we actually do like 99.999% of the time?
I thought that you said that, and I also thought that you have this very scientific engineering approach that, it's hard, but it can be performed, and because we can learn that. So today we are going to talk a little bit about this where the craft, let's say, of deciding starts and ends, and where is this art part, perhaps. So if we are going to discuss the value-based decisions, I would like to understand and know what is your definition of value. How would you, first of all, term? I know it's very broad and there are lots of different approaches to what value is. So what is Łukasz Szóstek's personal definition of what value is?
This is a really good entry point. And you, just as a side remark, I could talk, I've been doing this for years. I'm really passionate about this stuff. And I can talk it from a number of different angles, starting from, psychology, kind of pop psychology, to this angle. So thank you for setting me up on on one of those angles. So I don't have to think, which way would it work the best. So if we start from that angle, actually there is a decision, there is a definition of business value that I haven't found a person to disagree with. And this is actually the foundation of this value-based decisions method. And it's actually easy to steer people into discovering themselves, but I will just tell you because of the lack of time. So the idea is that the most kind of fundamental and universal definition of business value is an impact on the needs of the stakeholders. There are three difficult words.
Well, impact on the needs of stakeholders.
Yeah. So let's start from the stakeholder. So stakeholder is anyone who is either influencing the product that you are making. Let's narrow down the discussion to hypothetical product. Maybe we don't have to tell what it is.
We are in the IT company, so our products are mostly in the banking industry.
Yeah. So a stakeholder is anyone who has impact on your product and anyone who is impacted by your product. So these days, fortunately, thanks to UX people, business people always will bring the customer value, right? So we build a system or we change it or add a feature to have our customers more satisfied. But just customers is just one of the stakeholders, right? We are in a banking business. A regulator is extremely important. Your internal security people are important. Your workforce, your customer service, they're all stakeholders, right? And if you take a decision just looking at one of them, like if we want to do everything squarely what is best for our customers, let's just give them money for free. That's the way to make them super satisfied.
Yeah, that's
right. But in the background, we know that we cannot do this because we have a CFO or, an accounting department or whoever is, in charge of our income. They have to be satisfied too. So the simple solution that would make the customers, clients most happy, just give them money, is at odds with the needs of our internal stakeholder who says, well, we have to bring profit or we'll be out of jobs very quickly. Right? So it turns out there is a number of these stakeholders. Some of them are external, many of them are internal. And there is a chance that any decision you take, probably bigger one, will have some impact on a subset of them. Probably not all of them. On some of them, your decisions could be, kind of transparent to them.
Yeah, it probably has to be a very profound decision to impact all of them.
Yes, that would be, I don't like moving headquarters. That would be maybe one, but, they don't come that often. But anyway, so the art of a good decision-making is trying to see, how it impacts all the stakeholders that will be impacted. That will be the cleanest definition. Of course, it's a lot of work if you have, 120 stakeholders, because they could be groups of people or individuals. It's probably impossible to address them all, but that's the angle of the definition of business value that I'm using, and it works. And here, an interesting thing is that this business value could be less than 0.
Okay.
So if a very simple example, it happens probably every day. You bring a new feature to your mobile application. It's almost guaranteed, if it's not a trivial change, that your customer service will receive more calls just after you launch it, because it's not super clean. People will have problems. Maybe there will be some hiccup. Even if it's done perfectly, some people will not understand what's happening, or if you change two screens. So every new feature has a negative impact on your customer service volume of calls, for example. They will be a little bit less happy. Right?
Okay, now it's understood.
Yeah. So if we try to wrap it up, so the business value is the sum of all the impacts, positive and negative, of all the needs of all your stakeholders. That would be a super theoretical, universal, that's the definition of a business value that you cannot really work with, but you can take it as a start of, building your own way of taking decisions.
Well, certainly, even in the same company, it would be very hard to find two exactly the same definitions of value between two different products. So I was completely prepared for the answer that there is a sort of basis that we can build on top of. And then we actually have to do some work by our own. I am mentally prepared for this part of conversation. Yeah. All right, so we have our hypothetical product or some sort of service or solution that we're building for some group of stakeholders, as you call them. Maybe a specific group, maybe a subset. This also differs from team to team, product to product. And you gave us a definition of what is that value. You're saying it's sum of impacts that the change that we are performing has on their, let's say, generally happiness. It might be the money, the income, the costs, everything, or just some joy of using a specific app or system.
The best way to think about it is really their needs, but in a professional context, right? Of course. So if you have a CFO, his needs will be related to, money. If you have someone, the customer service, their need would be related to customer happiness, but also daily kind of workload or whatever.
That's completely understood. So once we have those stakeholders with different needs, different probably expectations of the product, is there a way how because normally they would probably be delivering to us or to some product people, like, let's say, product owner or some project manager or whoever is in charge in our company of somehow managing the stakeholders and those relations that the company has with them. They probably are bringing you different types of needs and ideas and requirements. Yeah. So there has to be point in time when somebody who is in charge is just sitting next to a table, just putting all those options, ideas, and requirements on the table, and is making the decision. Okay, so what we are going to do, what we are going to deliver, what we are going to build, what we are going to service, what we are going to actually start to closing down. And this is the reality of all product people in probably all IT companies all around the world. It's definitely a reality of the product owners in our company here, in my company, in BEC. So if we can maybe somehow frame some steps that VBD consists of, and what would be the better approach to making, because normally when we are making a decision, it's more or less, there is definitely some analysis, of course, but also we heard about some gut feeling, years of experience that somebody just knows. That person is here for 20 years, he knows. Sometimes it's the hippo, so we are looking for the highest paid person's opinion in a room, or some other cool, nice abbreviations. But VBD is offering something else. It's offering this, I would say, this engineering approach to making a decision. So if you can lay some foundation for VBD, some steps. Where are we starting? If I'm a product person and I have different ideas to somehow compare, because I obviously cannot do them all.
Fair enough. I'm just wondering, because there are a number of kind of fundamental issues that we have to navigate around, but I think I will go through steps and then take a side remark why this step is constructed like this and not in a different way, right?
Yeah, so let's build a structure first.
Yeah, exactly. So, but one thing before we go to the steps, the way that VBD is constructed, it's specifically tuned for situations when a group of people is taking a decision together. So the transparency of that choice, why we are prioritizing one thing over the other, this is the critical thing.
I'm very glad that you were saying this, because I work for a Danish company, and actually making decision in groups is a very Danish thing culturally.
Yes.
So we rarely do things, in a very authoritarian style, when one person is making a decision. Obviously, one person is legally making a decision, but before we reach that point, there's a lot of consultancy around, with a lot of different people, with a lot of different skill sets. So I'm very glad that we have a tool that can actually work in my context.
For individuals, it could also work, but more like to have an internal discussion with your own, but let's concentrate on groups. But now when you touched upon groups making a decision, that I'm going to make the first kind of side remark about how human brain works, because this is something we actually try to navigate around. So there are two problems. Sorry for doing this.
For those of the audience who will be only listening, Łukasz just made a quote unquote in the air.
Yes, air quotes around problems. This is how we probably evolved to communicate. So one aspect is that if we are talking in the same language, native, even if it's our native language, our brains are not giving us a warning signs if the message is not passed exactly how I thought about this. Human brains are very okay with just forming a kind of a cloudy vague idea. I think I know what you understand, what you are saying, but I don't communicate. I just say, yeah, I understand what you're saying, even though we know it's probably in the vicinity, but it's not the same thing.
So we have two different mental pictures, but on the level of the language, it appears to be the same.
Yes. And we don't have this kind of warning sign or a light in our heads that, be careful, we actually don't know if we agreed. So it's a kind of a temporary, I don't know, let's go. So we don't have this warning sign that we didn't communicate precisely, that we're talking exactly about the same thing. Another aspect of human, not sure if it's human brains or this is how we are trained at school, at the universities. Few people are really clear about separating means and ends. And when you use this word requirement or stakeholders' needs, what often comes is a solution, not really a need. So it looks like this. So the client needs, lower interest on their credit. Well, that's really their need. This is a solution to some other need. Which, if we keep asking why, you will get to the solution, to the actual need, right? So why he wants to have, lower interest on a credit, because he needs more money, that stays with him, or you can dig deeper and you go to kind of basic human needs like the feeling of security, this kind of stuff. So the whole kind of hierarchy of these needs, and UX people, UX researchers are really good at this. We don't have to dig deeper, very deep, but we really have to be careful when we frame a solution in terms of needs. So basically, if the answer to a need is kind of a binary, like we have it, we don't have it, 0, 1, yes, no, it's like more than 9 out of 10 times this is a solution, and you have to dig at least one level deeper. So why would you need this?
So you're mostly talking about hammers and not nails in a wall.
Yeah. I'm talking about, I have a need of hanging a picture. That's also a solution. Why? I want this room to look nice. Okay, that's a need.
Doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah. And it's very difficult to overcome this way of function of the way that our brain operates. So it's easier to bring a structure which steers you away from this kind of thinking. And this is why VBD is structured as it is. And if we already agreed that the definition of the business value is the impact on the needs of the stakeholders, and we want to prioritize our ideas, options, how you very nicely name them, by their business value. We will add the cost later. We can do return on investment later on, but at the beginning, we're just interested in the business value. So starting from this definition, the steps are a little bit obvious, right? Because if it's impact of the needs of the stakeholders, then the first step is get the list, make a list of stakeholders. Right? And here I stress it very much, make a full list of all the stakeholders you can think of. We won't be working with all of them later on because the task would be just too big, but I insist on making a full list just to be sure, reasonably sure, that we are not forgetting someone important, like the regulator, like our legal people. When you are in the trenches of making a product, we sometimes forget about the stuff that is not in foreground, but it's still very important. So make a full list. The second step would be, if it's supposed to be impact on the needs of the stakeholders, at least of stakeholders, we need their needs. So next step, write down what are the needs of the stakeholders. One stakeholder can have more than one need. And the first step is to write them as you think about it. It doesn't have to be precise. Just try to think what the needs are in the context of your product or in the context of your company. So like we already mentioned, like CFO or the legal team, we know what their responsibility is.
So the needs obviously can be contradictory to each other, because with your example of getting this, more calls, it can also be something that is against a need of, let's say, the department of customer service, when they would like to have, like, for example, stable workflow. This is their interest and their need, which is probably in contrary to the need of the sales department, who would like to have more calls, more customers, this kind of stuff.
Okay. Let's don't dig that deep. When starting with this, that's a fair assumption. The real answer is, if you don't have a solution in mind, there is no contradiction.
All right.
But let's not go there.
So let's make it simple.
Yeah, VBD can be, and it's an important thing here. I'm not trying to dumb down the VBD right now. It can be taken in a different kind of depth levels, and it's best to start basically relatively shallow, as I will explain today, and as I will explain first, and then we can add stuff to it to make it more and more comprehensive. But it's really best to start like the easiest possible version of it. So let's say, for the sake of argument, yes, those needs could be contradictory. As we explained, like, if whatever we do, the service people will be probably impacted, the customer service. Fair enough. So we write down those needs per stakeholder. And now we have to take a little bit into account the amount of work that we will do in the future. So the smallest number of stakeholders that I have ever found doing this for real, not as a kind of artificial exercise, was 12. The largest number...
so that was the smallest number.
The smallest number is 12 stakeholders. No one ever had less than 12. The biggest number was done by a very experienced business analyst working in probably the most difficult area between kind of banking world and regulators and government projects. And when I mentioned, let's make a full list, he said, I have a list in my desk drawer. The number of items is 128. Shall I bring it? And I said, no, I trust you did your homework. Really? But it was like really outlier. You end up probably between like, I said 12 is the minimum. If you have less than 12, think harder, look wider. Probably you land around like 20, maybe not even that, like 20 plus or minus 5, something like this. So if that's a small number, try to write the needs of them for all of them as you think about it. With one kind of a caveat is that if the answer to this need is yes or no, we have it, we don't have it, kind of a binary, that's probably a solution. So you have to keep asking, why we need this, right? And once you have this, it feels like you are ready, but here we come into this trap of our brains that we spoke before, that we are using the same words. We think we are communicating precisely, but we mean different things. So we need here a step like a 2B, making those needs very precisely defined. And I'm afraid humanity found only one way to make this kind of statement very precise and, difficult word, unambiguous.
And what's that?
Which is put a number on it.
Okay.
Quantify it.
So there is engineer inside you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's actually, here's another trap. When you ask people, especially in a corporate context, put a number on it, they might get scared because they immediately start thinking measurement, target, bonus, performance. It's not about that. This is only to make sure that when I say ease of use, we mean exactly the same thing, right? So the question to ask yourself when doing the quantification is, how would we know that need is better addressed or worse? So we are looking for a gray scale of, having more of that or less of that need kind of fulfilled. My go-to example is the ease of use, right? If you have an application and we talk and we have to take the decision how the UI will look. And we both agree, it has to be easy to use. Yeah. What happens quite often, we switch, our brains go to communicate in terms of solutions immediately. And I say, and we have to make a keyboard entry easily. And we say, no, it has to be, not too many elements on the screen. And we will be kind of clashing on a level of solutions, assuming we both mean well, and we wouldn't know why. And the reason is, most often, that we are thinking about the different definition of what it means more user-friendly. When I was thinking about easy keyboard entry, I was thinking about a person who is working with this tool day in, day out, 8 hours a day, has to do like massive data entry. And maybe you were thinking about a casual user who has to use it first time and will never come back to this again, right? So if we take this advice, like put a number on it, then I would say, it's a number of, transactions that the experienced person can do in an hour. And you would say, no, man, I was thinking about the person who sees it for the first time, and I hope she can do this, this first transaction ever, like within 2 minutes and without consulting a manual. Now I know why we were pushing one direction, I was pushing in the other direction, right? This happens a lot. Take a look when the features are discussed and notice how people are clashing in terms of solutions they propose, and they have no idea why.
It's a very human thing to jump to solutions.
Yeah. So those two traps of the human brain, like vagueness doesn't ring a bell, and we communicate in terms of solutions. This is combination of those two, and that's why we got kind of, conflict, for lack of a better word. Okay. It could be very peaceful, but still it's a conflict.
Okay, so we listed all the stakeholders.
Yes.
Then we looked for their needs. And as we know, a good number for stakeholders is between 12 and 128. So it probably can leave us with a similar number of needs between 12 and 128. And now we're saying that we should put the number in a need, which actually means let's find a common language that we can understand.
So we know precisely what this need means. How would we know that it's better or less served, depending on whether we do feature A or feature B? Right? And another trap here is if you do this, you will hear people saying, but it's impossible to measure. Again,
I hear that quite
this is not for the purpose of measurement. If we want to measure it in the future, we'll talk about it. This is only for clarification that we mean exactly the same thing when we say more user-friendly, because we know for whom and under what circumstances we will judge user-friendliness. So it's only for qualification. I can't really stress it enough. Super important.
Is it?
So once we have this, so we have the stakeholders, we have their needs, which are written unambiguously, precisely. And the best way is to put it basically in a table. So you write down as the rows in a table, and in columns, you write your options, your choices, your alternatives. And basically on the crossing of each of your options, which of the needs with E. On the crossing of each option with each need of a stakeholder, you put an impact there. So if we do this, if we fulfill this option, if we choose this implementation or this alternative, how will it impact precisely this need of this stakeholder? Could be zero, like no impact. It has nothing to do with this stakeholder. Could be positive. Yeah, it will make this need fulfilled better. It could be a negative number. So if we do this need will be less addressed. They will be under, more stress, more calls, how we discussed. And because this impact is kind of relative, it doesn't have an actual, I'm missing a word here. Let me start again. And because this number is kind of opaque, impact is positive, negative, or a zero, it gives you you can actually add them up. And that would be, now we arrived at the business value of each of those options, alternative solution. You add up all the impacts on all the needs of all the stakeholders. Right?
Okay, so we are summing the columns, and then we have the value. Okay.
Yeah. So these are the kind of steps when you look at them. In practice, you want to end up with number of rows in this table. Tom Gilb says 10 is enough. It's more than anyone else or any competition of yours is doing. So you will be, really good if you do 10. In practice, I find it difficult to limit people to 10. But I would say 20 is already a lot because the number of this impact kind of estimations that you have to do, it grows with the square of the number of rows, right? So I would say definitely stay below 20. I wouldn't push you to do 10, but 20 is a lot of work. You have to balance here the amount of analysis that you want to put into a decision-taking process.
Okay. So we are ending up with a certain, say, matrix or Excel spreadsheet or any kind of board. And when we have those needs and their impacts, and we have the sums of those impacts. And this is our, the first part of VBD is done at this point.
The kind of analytical, mechanical part is done. Maybe I should already mention, because maybe some people would like to try it at home or at office. The easiest way, and I really recommend this when you're starting with VBD, is to judge the impact in a scale from -5 to +5. Don't make it more granular because you will be arguing whether this is 1 or 2 out of 10. We are guessing here, just like poker like impact? No, just like
No, you're saying about the planning poker. Perhaps.
planning poker. Yes. So, it's an estimation. It's good enough. And the scale from +5 to -5 works well. It's tested. I was fine-tuning this, and it seems okay. Start with 0. First question, does it have impact at all? Yes or no? Because there will be a lot of zeros in a table like this. And then you say, no, it will have impact. Then you say positive or negative.
-x plus x.
Yes. And treat +5 as a kind of a really great solution in a sense that if we have +5, it means that for that need of the stakeholders, we don't have to do anything else. This is done. This need of the stakeholder is fulfilled. Happy customer.
Perfect solution.
Yes. It doesn't have to be, it has to be good enough, to be honest.
Of course.
So we are getting into nuances that come later. Anyway, I think that the best wording is, if we do this, we don't have to worry about this line anymore. So if you would be summing them up horizontally, which is not very valuable solution sum
Approach.
at this level of sophistication, it would be say, we don't need anything else. I mean, that's enough. And -5, I have never had actually -5, but would be like a total disaster. Somebody will die or we will be fired. Something really, really terrible. Never got it. I like symmetry, so I put -5 there just to be there, right? You will be oscillating probably around like +1, -1, up to 3. Maybe you get +5 sometimes, but just those numbers will be kind of more reasonable. And this is kind of the analytical part. And until now, it feels very kind of mathematical, almost. And here, quite a few people will say, oh, so we can make an algorithm to take those decisions for us. Right? Because you sum it up and, the biggest number wins. Kind of makes sense.
Have you tried asking ChatGPT for that?
I still hope this, after those VBD steps, you will have a better answer than ChatGPT, more fine-tuned to your kind of situation. But the real magic starts when you collide this kind of algorithmic outcome with your gut feeling. This is what the step that brings a lot of alignment within this team who is taking the decisions. Because once you do these sums, then take a step back, look at this whole table, and see whether your gut tells you that whether these sums are okay, or too high, or too low. Because there will be interesting things will be happening on this, when you do this collision, for lack of a comparison. What will always happen is you will find kind of low-hanging fruits. So something doesn't have a big impact, but it doesn't look too costly. And someone will ask, why didn't we do this last month? I mean, this should be already done. It's not a big effort, not a big impact, but it's definitely positive. Let's stop talking about this because, postponing for a quarter, let's just do this. Most of the time, someone will say to the group, like, this is my baby feature. I always was kind of lobbying for that. But now when I look at the sum compared to other stuff, okay, I see there are better options on the table. So I will hold on my thought until it comes the best one. I will stop lobbying you for that particular kind of, I call them baby projects. It's kind of my baby project. I thought about it, I'm excited about it. But then you look analytically,
it's also a negotiation tool.
Yes. A lot. Let's do this later. What are the actual benefits when you start doing VBD? You will also find stuff there that you knew was there, like big initiatives that are expensive and are supposed to bring a lot of benefit. You will see them, nothing really great. And once in a while, someone will say, this option here, this project X, it sums up to, let's say, 20, right? And this next one also sums, but this one is more important. I don't agree that they are the same. Then you keep digging, ask this person, why do you think it's like this? There's probably an important row missing, if that person is correct. So you might have forgotten about some need of some stakeholder that if you add it to this table, and add this impact will kind of equalize the gut feeling with the actual value that comes out of it. This is super kind of valuable when it happens. So what is actually happening here, if you do this exercise as a group, and I really, really cannot stress enough, do it as a group, don't do this individually, if you want to be taking decisions as a group. You have now common understanding of your important stakeholders, because maybe you filtered some of them out. Because if you start with the list of like 100 of them, and you have to arrive at the table of not more than 20 rows, you will have to say, well, these are the critical stakeholders and their needs, and the rest we don't forget, but we don't bring them to the table. Right? We still kind of use our common sense, which brought us in this company thus far. We won't forget them, but let's not kind of really put a measuring tape to all of them. It's just too much work. So as a group, you narrow down the list of your critical stakeholders. You agreed what their needs are, and very precisely. Now you have judged your options, how they impact those needs, and you checked it against your gut feeling. So you kind of iron out anything that could be missing. I promise you, this group will tell you we have never felt so aligned. This happens every time. I go this far. If someone doesn't believe me, I say, let's do this workshop for real with the group who wants to take decisions together kind of cleanly. If they don't tell me that, and I don't care how long they work together, they could be working there for years. If they don't tell me they are much better aligned than before this workshop, I will not charge you a single cent. Yeah, you will have this, X number of days for me for free if it doesn't happen. Okay. This is what really makes my eyes blink. When I see these people finally understanding, oh, that's why we are misaligned. Now I understand this kind of alignment. It's the best thing about, doing this.
Right, cool. So we right now lay out the, let's say, theory of VBD. We know all the steps. We know all the elements that we have to put together. You stressed or highlighted this, that it's a group exercise. So this is the alignment exercise.
Yes.
This is for us to actually put all those different mental pictures together in a common language. And the way how we can achieve that is to put a number on it. Not to measure, not to make it a target, but rather to make it as a tool for a common understanding.
Yes.
A tool that we can argue about, the tool that we can negotiate about, but to eventually come up with a common understanding, a common language, an alignment, as you said. So I'm wondering, this seems like a very good tool for all the product people who are, facing this challenge of making tough decisions in their product, in their service, in their platform. Probably all the, let's say, strategic decisions on the level of the features, some new initiatives, some new project, or some internal enterprises within the company. So that's what we have to know. That's what we have to assemble once we are starting to do VBD. Probably a person who knows about the method as a kind of facilitator is also nice to have.
You do need one. You need someone who is impartial to the decisions that are being taken to manage the energy flow. Because people, this will be, I'm not saying people will argue, but there will be very intense exchanges of opinions.
Especially that a lot of those people can have a different interest in what we are about to build or deliver. So that's probably an obvious take. So also we need to have somebody who is knowledgeable about VBD and can, as you said, manage the energy of the group. But I'm wondering to help those people who would probably grab that mantle of VBD person in their company. It might be some product owner who will read Tom Guild or is listening to our talk today. It might be some Scrum Master or coach or somebody who's completely, as you said, impartial to that conversation. So maybe, I don't know, a software engineer from a completely different department that can facilitate that conversation. So maybe to make that a little bit more visual, to help the people understand, okay, so what we are really building in VBD. Maybe we can refer to some examples.
Okay. I have a few. They are not really a presentation, so I will just be kind of showing you stuff that I think is worth showing. I will show you first a picture. Okay, we are already there.
Yep.
Okay. So this is a real picture from a real session about real decisions about a real product. So it was done for a pizza portal. They, I think, I'm not sure, didn't they have Danish investors?
That might be the
I
case.
think they had. I mean, in Poland, the Pyszna took over this market, but they were the beginner, and I think they were competing for a long time. So this is Marcin on the right of the picture, and this is a picture from a real session. That's why
It's blurred.
it's blurred. But this is to show you that you can really take this difficult decision on paper, and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like less than 10 rows there.
So that's why Marcin is face palming in the picture.
No, he's face palming because it's really intensive. I mean, I can't stress it enough. If you do this for real, it's like Scrum, right? It's simple in terms of just for steps, but it's not easy to do, especially the first time, because you have to carve your kind of new pathways in your brain to some extent. Plus, as I said, the energy in a group is kind of boiling. A little side remark: I'm not sure. I think in a company with Danish culture, I wouldn't be afraid to put a software engineer in charge of facilitating, but it has to be someone who is strong enough facilitator, so he will basically pacify all those decision makers. Like, yeah, you told us already. Let's move on, right? It's this kind of really
That might happen.
heated discussions.
A lot of companies, in Danish companies too.
Yeah. So basically to show you, it can be done with relatively small number of data. I have a quote from Marcin. Actually, it's even here, right? So it was about changing something in the mobile app, and he really said conversion 200% up. So, wow. No? And it took like
That's impressive.
2 or 3 days, I think. But really decision makers. So whatever we decided there, we implement. So that is, I would say, huge, right? How it normally looks, I have a few examples here because a few companies, thank you again. Let me show the actual data. And just not to bore you to death, let's see how it looks. It will be blurry again on purpose in kind of a more traditional or more common way. So we do this in a spreadsheet. So this is Tatra National Park. And it was the exercise was to create a strategy for their publishing kind of department. They have their own publishing department. Right? And they basically have a number of needs. And many of them are related to the mission of the park. So for example, one of the things that publishing department does is kind of leaflets and information for tourists.
Some safety rules, this kind of stuff.
So for example, one of the needs that they had was like better knowledge and understanding of rules in the park among unqualified tourists. That was a need of a board of the park. But as you see here, it's kind of vague, right? Because better knowledge, understanding of rules in the park among unqualified tourists. What does it mean? What's unqualified tourists? And how would we know this, right? So this is before putting a number on it. Once they put a number on it, it was like this, like percentage of randomly chosen unqualified tourists met on route, knowing and understanding the rules of behavior and safety rules. And it should be more than 80. They decided to go for measurement immediately. It's not strictly necessary, but it already kind of really specifies how they mean it, right? So unqualified tourist is a person who walks into a national park. Qualified tourist, I had to learn this, is like a scientist or someone who is doing the work there.
Oh, okay.
Right? So qualified tourist is just basically,
It's just me
for
and
us,
you
it's just
going there for fun.
Right. And they said, okay, so if we ask a random regular tourists met on a route about some specific rules of behavior and safety, they already decided, there are 2, right? Then more than 80% of them should know that rule that we are asking about. This is very precise, right? And here we will make a bigger picture in a second. What is put in square brackets, it means there is a definition written down somewhere what exactly are the rules of behavior and safety rules. So we're not talking again vaguely, but it says these rules and these rules. So we'll be asking about this and about that. And the percentage should be more than 80. It means its target kind of is fulfilled. We are happy with this, right? So this is how it was going. And then if we jump to the table, so this is the first row of this. And they have more stakeholders with more needs.
Okay.
And on the right, you can see there was a kind of a short pipeline of activities or projects that they were thinking about. And it's like it's a publishing department. So there was an author meeting, redesign of the portal, some media database that was internal stuff, and putting out new book, safety leaflets, and newsletter for local authorities, right? So you could already see that, for example, safety leaflets for TOP is the rescue
the rescue service.
the rescue service. It was kind of geared to that because it's probably going to talk about safety rules, right? So you see, if we cross,
there's a clear connection.
There will be probably a positive impact there, right? But for example, like putting out a new book, Atlantida 2, has nothing to do with any safety regulations or even tourists. It will have no impact on this one at all because it's about something completely different. Right. So that's roughly how it looks. And as you say, like here on the intersection. So here in the column it says this meeting with the author. And here are actually different needs, different rows. Say this one has here the impact we measure a little bit differently. That's one level deeper. We didn't discuss it here. Why it's percentage, but this could be also the scale as we discussed from
-5 plus 5.
Right? So -10 would be probably -1, and 70. So 100 would be equivalent of 5. So 70 is kind of probably 4, right? A solid 4. So yeah, that's how it looks. Exactly how the steps that we discussed. You see?
Okay. So this is so we'll sum those numbers eventually, and we'll end up with some business value. But I am still bothered by one thing, and this is all that we are talking about right now is based on the experience of that group that is making that decision together.
That is true.
Which means that these people, they are bringing obviously their knowledge and expertise and skill sets and different points of view to that room, which is brilliant, which is good, which is much, much needed. But that means that they are also bringing their biases and the things that they don't know that they don't know.
Yes.
So I assume, and this is assumption based on a lot of time that I spent working with you in also in the banking context, actually.
True.
That there has to be some sort of a tool that will help us on the credibility side.
Yes.
So what is VBD telling us about how credible those solutions are?
This is the question that always comes up. Once we get to these 3 steps, we'll say, yeah, but you say impact is 3, I say impact is 5, and who is right? And it's a right impact. What quite often happens as well is the question before that is, how do we know that these are really the needs of the stakeholders? That would also pop out, this question once in a while, a little bit less occasionally than the one that you asked. And to give you a proper answer, because it's recorded, so you can go back to this later and think about it, let me give you the proper answer instead of a shortcut here. So what we discussed until now is a kind of the simplest way of doing VBD steps that bring you a lot of value. And here, in this easiest version, when we score from -5 to 5, what you're actually getting the most is the alignment within the team.
And this is let's say the benefit itself.
It's a huge benefit. I look at this originally as a tool basically for the decision making, and through experience, actually now I believe when you start with VBD, that's why I advocate do the simplest way. The alignment is the biggest value that you really get out of this. That is difficult to get otherwise. But you still get your options prioritized by business value. You still have it, but the alignment is much more kind of powerful thing because it still stays with this team. I don't want to say forever, but it's a new kind of trait of that team. So let me jump to a more thorough version of VBD, which you shouldn't do at the beginning. Then I will bring the credibility in that context because it's easier to understand. And we go back to this level and then how to think about the credibility in this context because it's just easier to logically put together on this.
Sure. So we covered the basics. Now let's go to do some advanced stuff.
So as you saw already on the slides from Tatra National Park, the score there was in percentages. And this is on the next level when you already have your quantification of the stakeholders' needs. And you actually start thinking about measuring them. And when you start measuring them, there are three aspects that comes to a measurement. One is the scale. So this is the quantification that we did at the beginning, so that the percentage of people answering correctly, the question about rules. There is some percentage of these people today that would answer this correctly, sticking to the Tatra National Park example. Let's say it's 20%, right? And we would be happy. We would feel that we've done our job correctly. The level is good enough when it would be 80%. Because aiming for 100% is really difficult. Perfect solution costs infinity. So it's another story. What is level good enough? But that's I don't want to go there today. So you have basically this gap, right? You have 20% of people answering you correctly today. You want to have 80. So you have 60. Maybe this is poorly chosen example, but I will stick with it. So your gap is 60%, right? You want to have 60 more. And that percentage that we have showed up, that we have seen there, this is how much of this gap, this solution you think will cover. So it's not an arbitrary number anymore from like -5 to 5. Is if we do these leaflets with the topper, well, they are actually only about the safety rules. So they will not impact us on the knowing the behavior rules that were in that need. So it won't be perfect. So we are not getting, from 20 to 80 for sure. So it's a subset. So let's say that it's like half. So this only gives us, instead of reaching 80%, that's only like half of the 10. And top leaflets, they are not displayed as widely, but actually maybe you should put them in this in the tourist information and other
when you're buying a
hotspots.
ticket or something.
Yeah, okay. So it will not get us to 80, but it will take us to, let's say, 60. So we take that gap and see, okay, how much of this gap did we really close, right? So from 20 to 60 out of 80, that's, you have to help me, like 75% probably. Yes. The example is poorly chosen because it's percentages and here percentages. But we basically closed like 3/4 of that gap. So that's the percentage that we put there. This is where we start looking at this table also horizontally, because in the end, we would like to have this 80%, which means just the leaflets are not enough. We need something else to get to this 80% of tourists answering correctly. And now if we are going that precisely, now the question, is it really going to take us, 3/4 of our journey to the destination or less? And this is where the credibility number comes in. And it's not about the chance, again, I have to stress it really, really hard. This is not about the chance that it will get there, but this is about, do we have any kind of data or any other proof that will be actually, impact will be, as we say, 75%. And Tom has, I have to ask him next time I see him, whether he had to think a lot about this credibility scale, but he wrote it down. I will show it to you. And it makes sense. I mean, I didn't find any problems with this. And if you could switch us to, I think, I will show you exactly how this scale looks. When I talk about this, I use more colorful language, but I will show you the original from his book. It's like this, right? So credibility goes from 0 to 1, because we will be multiplying it by the impact. So if we are not sure, then the score will go down, right? And a 0 is meaning, well, yes, we have no idea. That's what I think. And 1 is perfect credibility. We have done it more than once, measured it. It was always 75. Right? And the idea is not to get to 1 because it could be very expensive and you have to do this more than once and measure. It's just basically, as I said, showing
better than gut feeling.
Exactly. So the 0 is gut feeling, and 0.1. We know it has been done somewhere. It's very vague, but we know someone did this, and it was roughly like this one. And if you see 0.6, we have used this method, design, idea, strategy, option, how you call it, in-house, right? 0.7, we have reliable measurements for design, idea, in-house, measurements, plural, right? So basically, we're just asking you, okay, this now you are an expert, and you say it will bring us 75% of the target. Then could you please show us some data that supports this claim that it's 75%? And if person says, yeah, I have it in my computer, then with all due respect, you put 0 there. And the moment this person shows you this, you put a different number, the higher credibility. Because again, it's a trap of our brain. We think it was like that. I think I have it in my computer. It was related to our case. When I dig it out, it's actually old and not so much related because it was banking, it was insurance. Now I'm not so sure that my kind of impact estimation is really that solid. So that's the way to solve it. It works brilliantly. And when we are on this deeper level or more sophisticated level, when we are measuring targets, this scale makes sense because it's also about measurement. But if you do this with the group on this easier level with the scores from -5 to 5, and you feel you need basically to start kind of prompting people to think about the data, I would suggest just bring it in, but more kind of casually, because precisely these definitions will not work. But just bring this number there as well. Oh, by the way, where you put this number? When you have a row of the table and an option in a column. On this crossing, we put the estimation.
That's right.
We put 2 numbers here, with the estimation and the credibility in the same on the same.
So that means that we think that it's the number X with the credibility of 0.Y. That's actually what we are saying by that intersection.
Exactly. That's how we do this. And again, it's just to prompt people to think about, do we really have any data or information, like any proof that this impact is supposed to be that strong or that low or, negative or positive. It helps. It's just the preparation for the next step of thinking, it's a risky decision. So let me rephrase it. Where are the benefits of bringing this early, even if we are scoring in these relative numbers from -5 to 5? It shows up once you bring the cost. So even before you put credibility, you sum up the impacts and you put cost. I'm never telling at these workshops how to put the cost. Every company knows how to measure their cost, right? And for some companies, like if we are in IT, time is probably good approximation of cost because we mostly pay, for people's time. I was doing this on a strategy level for a company that has manufacturing. It was much more complicated because sometimes stock was impacted. Stock is a huge cost. Manufacturing cost could be impacted. So sometimes it's more complicated, but I promise you, every company knows how to measure cost. They not necessarily know how to measure business value. So once you have the impact and the cost of that solution, you're looking for the return on investment. If it's a small stuff, as I already mentioned, we should have done it months ago. Let's just do it. Don't talk about this. Whatever the credibility, it's just 1 week of one team of work. Let's just do it. But you will find, especially on kind of bigger projects or initiatives, that you see that, it's a big one. It has potentially a lot of impact. It's very costly. But those numbers are kind of low, like 0, 0.1, this kind of stuff. So you start questioning, is it, so the potential of a lot of value is there, but is it really there? This shows you that whether you know it or not. And if you still have a suspicion it could be worth it, you just start working on bring this credibility up. This is where the money come. This is this. Let me start differently.
That's right.
UX people, UX researchers will be more than happy to do this, because now they can tell you when they're asking for money for user studies or for user research, they will tell you exactly why, because we want to bring this credibility up that it will work and it will sell better, rather than just, give me amount of money because I have to do user research. Then we say to reduce the risk that solution is actually not as valuable for the customers as we think.
That's a solid explanation for us.
Yeah.
More money.
People from technology often will have this as an explanation why they need a deep dive into some technology or a spike or some time to basically explore something, just to bring the credibility up. And then for people who for the decision makers who have to worry about their budgets, costs, money, this kind of stuff, they see it immediately as a reduction of risk in their big investments. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, so that sounds like a useful tool. But I assume that in this very basic application of the VBD approach, then you can just skip the credibility scale. If you have this alignment on the very low level of the method, then you are good. But
yes, I would say
more sophistication, it also gets some useful add-ons, and the credibility scale is one of those add-ons.
It's difficult to advise, give like a strict advice on people who never done it before, facilitating such a meeting. But when you see people start disagreeing on those impacts, or you have a feeling they are kind of really drifting far, making bold statements, and you start feeling, well, it's really all gut feeling, and the stakes are high, meaning, expensive big projects, then you can see if bringing this in actually improves the situation. But from the get-go, I would say it's absolutely, first time you do this, stick with the impact from -5 to 5. That's all. You're gonna see miracles in this group anyway.
All right. So if you are a product person or a product owner or a person who is making decisions about products, platform solutions in the IT company, it's probably good to, first of all, listen to our material. But what are some other sources that you could, recommend? If I have seen our video and I still have this feeling, okay, maybe I should read, a blog post or some article. Are there any resources or some materials that you can point us to?
You are now touching a very painful point for me. I should have written more about this. I'm not happy with what I put out there. So let me start from the beginning. Unless you are really, really into analytical kind of mind and you want to get into really, really kind of great details about this, in the context of big engineering projects, you could try reading Tom's book. But it's a book that you study. You don't read this, you really study, and it's a thick book. So I would say this is the ultimate source of the inspiration. There is much more there than that you need. Tom goes as far as creating basically his almost formal language for, describing the requirements. Requirements being the needs of the stakeholders. That would be too far. The easiest access point is this video, actually, in English. In Polish, there are a few talks that I gave at conferences. And they have also
mostly on YouTube, so
yes, they're all on
you can Google it up.
Yes, and I also tried to put some stuff in writing. It's a URL. It's probably not visible. We'll make a big, nice kind of screen for this. It's called value-based-decisions.com, or a shorter version that would redirect you to the same place is vbd.works.
Oh, vbd.works. I like that.
I stole it shamelessly from less people.
That's what I thought, but I was afraid to ask.
Yes, of course, still like an artist.
Oh, of course.
So if you go to vbd.works, I have written kind of an introductory stuff there that will repeat those steps for you. There is another blog post about alignment and about also two, I think, more about other kind of side effects of going through this process. I still have to write the building of actual tables. So this is the only part that is missing from the critical stuff on the webpage. I promise I will write it down soonish, hopefully before this video is out, but that is missing. So that you have to take from this video. But it's just, this scoring from -5 to 5. So how hard can it be? Therefore, I didn't write it and I'm ashamed of it.
Don't be. I think that this video is covering all the main points of VBD. Is there anything else that you would like to say or to leave our audience with?
Yes, actually. I often have a question when not to use VBD.
Okay.
One theoretical answer that I haven't personally seen is when you have a person like the mythical Steve Jobs, who never existed, by the way, who has an absolutely great and flawless gut feeling and is taking these decisions without this kind of stuff. If you just have such a person going through these motions, maybe it will disturb their sense or their gut feeling. I don't know, that never happened. The real danger, for lack of a better word, is it's a little bit like Scrum and agility. Agility, all those frameworks that we know of, they bring transparency to how we work. And if for some reason in a certain organization this is dangerous or not very welcome, these companies will kind of, like the antibodies, they will resist this kind of stuff.
Sometimes transparent is too transparent.
Exactly. So when you think about this table that you are building together as a team, this is 100% transparency of why we are making certain choices. And in many companies, it could be felt as, I don't know, dangerous, for lack of a better word, or at least uncomfortable. Right? If you have a company which is driven by politics, either you have to write down those politics. We have to take care of the ego of manager Smith.
It is actually a stakeholder's need to be fulfilled.
Yes, and you can pinpoint that person and think, actually, I had a case like this, but I don't think I want to, make it go public. When they really thought about the specific person who was crucial to their little kind of department, and they were really addressing that person's needs. I mean, there was no judgment. They knew about this person's kind of needs as a person, and they took it seriously into consideration. But if the whole company actually, you think, would basically shy away from transparency of making decisions, don't try it. I mean, people will immediately smell it as something that, it won't work here, right? So these are the two cases when it could not work. Oh, there is a third one. Long version or short version?
When both, but no, give me the long version.
The long version is when I first met Tom Gilb, I was really fascinated by his Evo methods, but as I said, it took me quite a few years to dig in and get this essence, how my brain likes to think in those essences. And at the same time, there was a colleague that we both know, Marek Kirejczyk, who found Tom Gilb roughly at the same time, and he was also digging through that. So we were meeting, every few weeks just to compare the notes. How is your investigation? How is yours? And there was a certain moment that Marek said, you know what? I'm not buying this stuff anymore. I said, wow, okay, what happened? Tell me. I'd rather know upfront if something is wrong with it, so I don't invest even more time. And then he read the book about lean startup. So he said, no, it's better because here you do a lot of assumptions. This is why you bring this credibility. It's a lot of analytical work. What you should do is to try if it works. Put it out there, see if it works, and learn really from the actual response and not just kind of, analysis by experts. And I said, man, there is a merit to this kind of approach. But I couldn't immediately dismiss, but this stuff also has value. So where is the difference? And it took me quite some time to figure it out. And I think the difference lies in the risk of taking this decision.
Really?
So Marek, at that time, he transitioned to a new company, and they were basically the company who was testing landing pages. So for them, the cost of a wrong decision was basically zero, because they had like millions of clicks of traffic. They spread it over like 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever number of landing pages. And if some of them didn't work, who cares? It's a kind of a mass traffic. Mm-hmm. If you are thinking about building a new, I don't know, redesigning your architecture of your, banking backend system, man, if you take a wrong decision there,
that's costly.
That is very costly. So I think this is where lies the difference between those different methods. Like impact mapping is right in between those two. Mm-hmm. So depending how costly potentially is your mistake, you should put more effort into kind of proper analysis before you actually put it on the market. That's the solution. And that's also why there is a number of those tools, like just do it, mm-hmm. impact mapping, VBD, proper evo with all the shenanigans. It's just depending, what kind
Where are you and what need you?
Yeah, of course.
You have to fulfill.
Mm-hmm. So my third advice is, if you have a trivial problem, maybe it's not worth the analysis.
Mm-hmm. But if the problem is a little more than trivial, then the basic VBD is probably a good starting point.
I think so. I've seen it worked. I think I've done it for real, probably close to 100 times. Most of the sessions were kind of really confined one-day kind of exercises, just to see whether we're on the right track. But some of them were about defining a strategy for a company. So it works on actually any level. I actually have a half-jokingly saying, suppose you want to plan holidays with your significant other, with your parents, and with his or her parents, and you go together for holidays, and you are in charge of planning the activities. Kind of makes sense to put some thought into this, because maybe those people are very different. They have different needs. Some are active, some are passive. Some people like certain food, other food. So it's kind of a relatively high-stake situation. Can happen to anyone. When you have to kind of think a little bit about satisfying everybody to some extent.
Yeah. I think that we reached the point when we can wrap up this conversation. So today we have learned about how to make better decisions using the value-based decision approach. We discussed what a value is, what a good decision is. We have learned about a few steps, how the VBD can be used. And also when it's probably not the wisest decision to use VBD. So we also learned about some obstacles. Łukasz, I'm very glad that you have accepted my invitation here. And that's all for now. So Łukasz Szóstek was my guest today. It was Jakub Bażela-Federowicz hosting. And thank you very much to my guest, to you as the audience, and obviously to BEC Poland for being our host today, providing this great place.
Thank you all. Thank you for watching, if you are watching. And thank you for having me here. It's really not easy for me to get this stuff out of my head, and your questions really help a lot. And finally, there is something in English.
Yes.
Longish form on tape.
I'm very, very glad. Thank you.